Christmas Eve down under. Had about 2 straight weeks of rain. Last day, Christmas Eve on a Friday, was a half day. I ran down to the beach with no gear. It was clear I had to scramble back, get all my gear, but was frothing because it had been bad weather for so long. Same spot I usually dive. There's been no fish around. Today was all about crayfish. We had a few in the freezer, but more people were coming over for Christmas dinner, so we just wanted to grab some more if possible. First thing I came across was a bit of plastic. Yeah. Checking in some of the caves for some crayfish. I think that this is the end of the season. They tend to go back offshore now, but you get a few hanging around if you're lucky. Under the ledge, swimming through the cracks, no crays, no fish, bit quiet today. Saw a little drummer. It was a silver, which tastes pretty bad, so I just ended up burleying him up or chumming him up to see if other fish would come in. I've never used burley before, but figured I would have a go. Immediately, the wobbegongs come in for a sniff. You can just see it here, they're quite camouflaged. I chopped up that fish carcass, tossed it just over the other side of the reef, let it sit for 10 or 15 minutes and check some holes in the meantime. Had some tiny, very colorful goatfish swim by. Well, the wobbegongs must have devoured that drummer real quick, but this dive is just on the other side of where I set that burley, just on the other side of the reef crest, and it seems like it brought some fish in, you'll see. This species is protected from spearfishing. Well, there was no real good fish to take, but might try burley again. Seemed to stir up a little something. In the meantime, back to searching through the cracks. At this point I resigned. Lobster season was over and I just swam back in. Sorry for the sideways footage, but found a few. Go in with the slow half-ass grab and... Go! You saw their antenna flicking around. That means they're on to me. They've already retreated. You can just see the antenna one here. Deep hole. I grabbed him blindly. I had to work my hand down his antenna to get at his horns so it wouldn't rip out. But it ripped out anyways, and off he went.
You cannot be serious!
Yeah, I blundered the Christmas miracle, no doubt. Look at all that kelp. He's in there somewhere. There's no finding him. I scramble, but there's no chance. I go back to look for the others, but here on the camera you can't even see them. They've retreated so far back into that cave. I've got my whole shoulder under there as far back as it can go. I can barely grab the antenna, but I know that that'll just pull out, so gotta go back to the drawing board. I swam around the rock, just looked at all different angles, tried to find somewhere else I could potentially grab these crays from. I didn't notice it at the time, but you see this little crack here with the sun shining through it. That's the back door of that hole. I actually ended up swimming away, giving up. I got back almost in, and I was like, you know what? I need those crayfish for Christmas lunch. Turned around, and I ended up using this hole. You could actually notice it in the previous clip. Very tiny hole in the back of that cave. So I completely didn't notice that back hole. This is me having another go from the front. They're just so far back I'm not able to reach them. This is the point where I just give up and say I'm not going to get them. So I swim away for 15 minutes. I'm gonna hop out, and I say to myself, you know what? I've got to be the Christmas lunch hero. I've got to get these lobsters on the table, and I swam back. My GoPro died by this point, but the rest, as they say, is history. That I swam back, I found that back hole. That first lobster that escaped, he had actually crawled back in there in the time that I left. So I was able to go in the back hole. It was a big struggle ripping these things back and forth. It was at an awkward angle, that hole. I could barely get my hand through it. You can see it was a shit fight. The broken antennas. At a couple points I had my hands on them, but I had to let go and just go up and get air. I also found an old sign from one of the restaurants. Anyway, the next day was Christmas, so we prepped all the lobsters for the barbecue. I was in charge of cooking them. Boy, was I nervous. I was cleaning my garage. I found this crayfish plate. It was very fitting for the day. I really don't think I screwed them up too bad. They turned out well. We had a pretty simple lunch, just a bunch of crayfish, a bowl full of prawns or shrimp, and a salad. Merry Christmas.